it recording? Okay, so it's recording now. So I'm going to go with some of the files that I have. So all your files are, so I've broken it into week 7, week 8, week 9, and I will put the other weeks later. Okay, so for week 7 this week, these are the key slides that I need you to go through. So I'm going to just do a quick recap, and I've posted it. If for those of you who want to kind of refer to a more personalized view of it, it's on the WhatsApp. Okay, so the slide that I want to focus on is this one. What Henry Remax said back in 1961. So this was back in week, oh my God, it was like months ago. It feels like years ago. What was it, week 2 or week 1? I forget. When we went through this particular slide. Henry Remax said this in 1961, that comparative literature was the study of literature beyond the confines of one particular country, the study of relationships between literature on the one hand and other areas of knowledge and belief, such as the arts. It is the comparison of one literature with another or others. Yeah, so it can be more than one, and the comparison of literature with other spheres of human expression. And during class, we talked about what are different spheres of human expressions. Can somebody mention a few that we talked about?
Was it dancing?
Dancing. What are other humans' expression? What are other ways that you express yourself besides
singing, music?
Singing, music, dancing. What else? Sorry?
Art.
Performance.
Performance of any kind. Yeah, anyone does painting or doodling, you know, that's one expression of human.
Painting, for example.
Painting, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are different spheres of the human expression beyond literature, because literature is a form of human expression. Storytelling is a form of human expression. So in this particular definition, Remark identifies the value of looking at literature with other arts and defines other arts or arts generally as spheres of human expression. So that's an important definition that we need to keep in mind, especially in the 21st century, when you start to look for text to compare your work of art with, your literary work with. You may choose different types of human expression, like spoken poetry, like a rap song or any popular song, or anything that comes within your horizon of expectation, because the current cultural way of expressing ourselves as a humanity has changed, has evolved. You know, being a YouTuber, producing content on YouTube may be your example of spheres of human expression, you know, because we live in a digital age. So in this digital age, the definition of human expression has evolved, like fan fiction, where, you know, the fans produce works of art inspired by the literary work or the movie that they're watching or the TV series that they're watching, is an expression of humanity, their form of art, right? So I want you to kind of, you know, this is an important point to kind of keep in mind, okay? Are you all right with me so far?
Yes.
Seriously, it's super challenging to do this without
Yes.
seeing your faces. It's really crazy challenging, and you know, and I'm being challenged in so many ways, really, you know. There's a Malay expression that says "short sendiri," which means it's like you're like happily going at it on your own, and you're having fun, and you're not sure whether the rest are even understanding or computing, or, you know, I had a faculty meeting yesterday, so half the time we weren't sure whether the others were listening or following, you know. So I hope, you know, you will interject and kind of like you know, say yes or understood or thank you
All right.
or you know what I mean? Yeah, all right. Just add some fillers to kind of create conversation, you know.
Okay.
So that was 1961. Now 1998, you know, almost 30 years later, over 30 years later rather, this is at the end of the century, at the end of the 20th century. This is the definition of comparative literature. Comparative literature means the knowledge of more than one national language and literature, and or it means the knowledge and application of other disciplines in and for the study of literature. And second, comparative literature has an ideology of inclusion of the other, be that a marginal literature in its several meanings of marginality, a genre, various text types, etc. Okay, what's the first thing that you see different from Henry Remarque's definition? Anybody? So this is recap. I'm not telling you anything new. So what's the first thing that you notice is different compared to Remarque's definition of this 1961 definition? What's the first difference?
There is no nationality.
The element of?
Nationality.
Nationality. So in the 20th century, towards the end of the 20th century, the element of nationality has suddenly crept into comparative literature's definition. Okay, so that is already an important indication of how comparative literature has evolved. Okay, so now one more question to add to that is, if at the end of the 20th century, the element of the nation or the nation state or nationalism or nationality has become important, what about the 21st century? That's something I want you to kind of keep in mind. Okay, so what about in the 21st century? Is the nation still an important definition? So that's something I want you to keep in mind. Anything else that you see different in this definition compared to Remarque's definition?
Other disciplines. Oh, sorry.
It's okay, Jennifer first, and then after that, I'm not sure who said that.
Application of other disciplines like interdiscipline.
So the idea that we are not just looking at other arts, but we are also looking at the application of other disciplines. That's basically we're looking at theory. Yeah,
okay.
The theory to study literature. Okay, somebody else said something just now?
ID Dr. Ranjini.
Yes.
More inclusive because it mentions the inclusion of the other.
Good. Okay, good.
So probably moving away from the Eurocentric roots to accept marginalized literature.
There is a dimension of inclusivity to include more marginalized literature, to move away from the Eurocentric centers. Good. Shahira, did you say something?
My answers were exactly like Anjani's, more
okay,
inclusive.
Just repeat it anyway. I want to hear your thoughts. The way you express it may be different. It also may show your focus. What is it that you see?
The definition of comparative literature at the end of 20th century with the inclusion of other literatures, like marginal literature means that the marginalized communities are given a voice which they beforehand do not possess.
Okay. All right. Whoever else is talking, please mute your mic. All right. So Shahira, you were saying the marginalized literature again?
With the inclusivity of the marginal literature, it gives the marginalized community a voice that they didn't have before,
right.
And that it's no longer just European Eurocentric. It's no longer just Eurocentric.
Okay, so you know, the focus on the marginalized literature is as important as maybe what was known as the great literature. That's another term that was being thrown here and there, you know, in the 20th century definition of comparative literature. But the problem with that definition, with Tutosi's definition, is the marginalized literature is still in the periphery. We are not placed in the center. We're very much placed in the periphery. So that's something that we need to contest, that we need to kind of challenge. Okay. Was the third? Was this the third excerpt that I put on our WhatsApp? This one. Okay. So this is, you know, as we move into the 21st century, there is a kind of a shift. You see the kind of language that is being used becomes more philosophical and less centered at particular localities. All right. In this particular definition, to point, as I see it, is not to replace the old with the new, but to make room for those ancient civilizations. So it's not marginalized anymore. Rather, now it's seen as ancient. So the history, the legacy that these civilizations have is no longer viewed merely as the other.
Yes.
Okay? They are not just the other, the inclusion of the other. So they have, the minute you use, you know, your discourse matters. The minute we use words like ancient civilization, you have risen, that civilization has risen to a stature that is beyond the other. You know, it's got its own place. It's got its own superiority or sense of magnificence or grandeur, you know.
Importance.
So that is, sorry?
Importance.
Importance, that's right. And the importance is not relative to a center. Where else, when you look at this definition, the importance of the marginality, the marginal literature, is very much in relation to something. It's not in itself, the importance is not given to itself, rather it's given in its comparison to another locality, i.e. the superior, the center. Okay, so that's the bit that I want you to kind of focus on. As definitions evolve, yeah, into the 21st century, as definitions evolve, the circle or the circumference where comparative literature resided, which was previously Eurocentric and then Anglo-American, is now broadened. Okay, so this is the first thing that I wanted to draw your attention to based on the first lecture. So this is just recapping, right? And the next one, I'm looking for the slide. Let me just find which slide I gave you. This is the one. This one. Can you see this? Hello?
Yes, Doctor.
Yes.
Can? Okay, I can't make it bigger for some reason. Okay, just refer to your phone if you can. I'm going to read it. This is, I'm going to read it. This is from Lucia Baldrini's 2006 article. Okay. So it would be more useful to see comparative literature as a way of conceiving of the role of the critique and literary criticism interpretation. So suddenly a new dimension comes into the definition of comparative literature, where previously it was the text, it was the nation, it was the marginal literature, it was the other. Now suddenly we have a definition of comparative literature which brings in you and I, the readers, the literary critique. Okay, who are we in this relationship called comparative literature. We play a role. Our role is to interpret the text. I want to kind of like have this point focused on more because I think this is valuable, that in the 21st century, where the end of the 20th century, we moved towards a more nation-based definition of comparative literature, or nation-state-based definition. Towards the 21st century or 21st century and beyond, the beginning of 21st century and beyond, the role of the literary critique, i.e. the readers, become more important as well. All right. So I think this is valuable. We need to kind of take cognizance of the fact that, all right, 21st century comparative literature scholars are beginning to see how the readers also play a role. Not just the text, not just where the text is placed, you know, across time and space, across national borders, across geographical location, where the reader is also an important feature in the reading of text across time and space, because the reader may be the third equation. You've got text coming from nation A, text coming from nation B, and the reader comes from nation C, for instance. Okay, Pride and Prejudice is from the English canon. Then you may choose a text from maybe a Canadian canon or an American canon, and you as the reader, you come from either Malaysia or Iraq. So you've got a third location, and you bring your cultural background as you read both texts. So your role is as important as the text that you are reading. Do you understand that?
Yes, because we have to compare it with our.
Yes. So you're not just comparing text A with text B. You're comparing the two texts also against your background, your horizon of expectation. So I'm reiterating this point because from this week onwards, you will begin to conduct comparative literature in the text that you choose, in the various texts that you choose. So I need you to remember that you play a part in this.
All right.
Do you understand? So it's not just
Yes,
about,
doctor.
okay, this is Jane Austen's point of view and this is so-and-so's point of view, but you as a reader, your originality in the reading also plays a role to create more knowledge in the text that you're choosing. Maybe people have read Pride and Prejudice many, for many years and decades and century even, but they have not read it from Huda's perspective, from Ali's perspective, from Jen's perspective, Shahira's perspective, and Ranjini's perspective. Did I miss anybody?
No.
Yeah, you're not here, so I'm making you try to, I'm getting you to appear within my room right now as if you are here. You are apparitions, conjuring you people up. So I need you to remember that your background is important in your reading of comparative literature. Is that okay?
Yes, doctor. Okay.
All right, cool. So now come to this week's emphasis, or this week's focus. We're going to start with parameter, the first parameter. Okay, so this week's class is super light, super easy. We're just looking at, okay, these slides are available on UKM Folio. Later you can have a look. Okay, but when we think about the parameter, or because this is what this course is called, parameters in comparative literature. Okay, so what are the different parameters? The first and important parameter is theme. When you read a text, you develop an understanding of what is this text about? What's the theme of the text? Can somebody give me a definition of theme? What does theme mean? You can Google it. You do whatever you need to do. This is not a test, So what is your understanding of theme?
It's the message that the writer wants to convey to the reader.
Okay, so the message.
We can say, doctor, the main idea.
The main idea.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
What else?
Subject of the
The main
text.
subject. Good. What else? Is there only one message or one subject or one main idea of any novel or any work of literature? Is it just one?
No.
There are a few.
Multiples.
How do you decide what is the theme? How do you decide? What is it? How do you decide? Is there a way to decide?
Like,
Probably.
as a reader?
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So that's where you come in. Do you understand?
Our
That's-
role, yes,
That's
as a
where you
reader.
come in. As a reader, that's where you come in.
Yeah.
So when
As a reader, we have to analysis and then understand
as a reader, your analysis of the text is based on your perspective, based on your lens,
Yes, of
based
course.
on your understanding. So,
Yeah.
so the message may be different for Ali compared to Huda, compared to Jennifer, compared to Ranjini, compared to Shafira, because every one of you are at a different stage of your life, at a different point in your life, given the different experiences that you are experiencing and have been experiencing. You will then reflect that in the reading of the text that you are reading. Do you understand?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay, so I'm going to introduce you to one possible simple way of identifying a theme. So there's a video here. Please have a look at the video in your own time. I don't want to waste our class time for that. It's also available on our UKM folio. It's basically a short video on this topic, how to identify a theme in a work of literature. Okay, so this is a very general video looking at identifying of theme. All right.
All right.
But I want to introduce you to Pierre Macherey, who wrote in 1960 something, 1970 something. You know, in terms of production of a literary work, when we talk about a work of art, or you know, to take Henry Remarque's 1961 phrasing, the spheres of human expression. When you look at the spheres of human expression, one of the ways to identify the theme is to look at what it is not saying, not just what it is saying, you know. What
Yes.
it's not saying, the spoken and the unspoken. The unspoken, Macherey in his book, A Theory of Literary Production, I can make this available on our UKM folio. But the bits that I want you to focus on are in slides number 4 and slides number 5. After these two, we will look at excerpts from Pride and Prejudice, and I want you to identify the unspoken in each excerpt. That's the ones that I have posted on our WhatsApp group. Okay.
Okay.
So we're gonna practice. We're gonna practice to find the thing that Jane Austen talks about or states or narrates, and the thing that she doesn't say anything about. Okay. So this bit from Pierre Macherey's book, this chapter, he says, the book is not self-sufficient. It is necessarily accompanied by a certain absence, without which it would not exist. A knowledge of the book must include a consideration of this absence. So that means whatever work of art that you are reading, whatever works of human expression, to quote Remarque, that you are enjoying. It could be a music, a composition, it could be a movie, it could be a dance piece, you know.
Yes.
Whatever you are experiencing, there is, according to Pierre Macherey, a certain level of absence, right? And you, as the reader, the viewer, help make it more complete. It is in us asking the question: what is the writer, the artist, the musician, the director? What is it that is stated, and what is it that's not stated? And in identifying the not stated, you are able to identify the theme of the work of art. Do you follow?
Yes.
I see, Doctor.
Okay, so this is another quote from the book, from Macherey's book. So a book never arrives unaccompanied. So there are things that the book comes with, right? Jane Austen's book comes with, accompanied by her culture, the context, all right? So you must read the work of art within that context. You can't just simply say, okay, this is what I think Darcy means when he says this and this and this. We talked about this in our book club, in our 3 meetings of our book club, that there are certain societal, cultural issues that we need to take into consideration when Darcy makes his statements, when Elizabeth makes her statement, when Mrs. Bennet makes her statement. Whatever is being said, it is within the context of the society at that time, the 19th century English society of the time. So those are the 2 important things. So the absence, things that are not said in the text, as well as the context. Those 2 will help you identify the theme of the novel. All right?
All right.
Okay? And you playing the role as the reader. So let's look at the first excerpt. This is from chapter 5. So you can either have a look at your novel, if you've got the novel with you, chapter 5. I will help you find the actual page. Chapter 5, if you've got the novel with you, all well and good. Chapter 5, the last page. This one is in chapter 5, the last page. So this is Mary's observation, all right, of pride. What is pride? Okay. So Miss Lucas, the top of the page. Are you all seeing the same thing?
Yes, doctor.
Yes, doctor.
Okay. I wish I could say just nod with me, and so I can know that you are following me, but nod doesn't work, obviously. So something else. Maybe knock the table that you're at. Okay,
We are here, doctor.
okay. Okay.
We are solely auditor.
Okay, cool. All right. So they are discussing whom in this context? Mary, Elizabeth, and Miss Lucas. Who are they talking about?
About Darcy.
About Darcy.
Right.
About this fine young man with fortune and family and all that. About this fine young man.
Yes.
So Miss Lucas says, his pride, Darcy's pride does not offend me so much as pride often does, because there is an excuse for it. One cannot wonder that so very fine a young man with family, fortune, everything in his favor should think highly of himself. One cannot wonder that. That means you can't be surprised that he thinks highly of himself. If I may so express it, he has a right to be proud. Okay, that's what's stated. What is unstated? What is Jane Austen not telling us? Let's read on. This is very true, and I could easily forgive his pride if he had not mortified mine. This is what Elizabeth is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what you see on the page is what is obvious, what is said, what is spoken, to take Pierre Macheret's words. Okay.
Yes.
So what I want you to do is read through it and ask yourself, what is not stated? What is unspoken? Okay, so let's continue. This is Mary. Mary doesn't seem to be given that much attention. Does anybody have any observations of Mary based on their reading of Pride and Prejudice? Who is Mary, first of all?
The youngest sister.
Elizabeth's sister.
One of the Bennet girls. Okay,
Yeah.
the younger one. What do we know about Mary compared to the others? Compared to Jane, Elizabeth, Lydia, what do we know?
Like
Clean looking, right?
slow, probably.
She's what?
Too much.
Slow.
She. I didn't hear that bit. She's what? Shahira, you said
Plain looking.
what looking? Plain looking.
They are plain looking.
Okay. So in terms of her physicality compared to Jane, she's very plain looking. Jane is the pretty one. Right?
The more serious between them, and she read too much.
She reads too much. Yes.
She's not really a gifted piano
of the
player.
family.
She's not really, Shahira?
A gifted piano player. Yeah,
Okay,
that
so-
was her, right, who played the piano.
That's right. So she plays the piano, but she's not
Very talented.
very talented there. But her strength lies where?
She's quite observant of things, actually.
She's observant, and then who does it? She reads too much. I like that phrase.
Nothing wrong with that, right, Uda?
She's a criminal.
She writes too much. Sorry, she reads too much. You know, I love this expression of too much. You know, I like you too much. Yes, okay. Yeah, she reads a lot. She reads a lot.
Yes.
So I like this particular quote when Mary defines pride. Can somebody read that bit for me? Because my throat's getting dry. And I want to hear somebody else's voice besides mine. Can somebody read that?
Pride.
Yeah.
Pride observed, Mary.
Out loud, not to your silently to yourself. Somebody read aloud.
Pride, observed Mary.
Yeah.
Who picked herself upon the solidity of her reflections. It is a very common failing, I believe. By all that I have ever read, I'm convinced that it is very common indeed that human nature is particularly prone to it, and that there are very few of us who do not cherish a feeling of self-complacency on the score of some quality or other, real or imaginary. Vanity and pride are different things, though the words are often used synonymously. A person may be proud without being vain. Pride relates more to our opinion of ourselves, vanity to what we would have others think of us.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I want you to look at that excerpt. Tell me what is spoken. Tell me what is spoken, and tell me what is not spoken. What is the unspoken? What is the absence, or the thing that is kind of like you don't get this other information? What is it that's missing? What is spoken about Mary? Tell me something about Mary from this excerpt.
Try to get deeper in every vocabulary.
Yeah, she goes into things quite in depth. What else? How does she arrive at this definition?
From observing the conversation.
What did she say in her statement? How does she arrive at this definition?
There is a fine line between vanity and pride.
No, before that.
Oh.
How did she arrive at this definition?
A reflection.
By reading.
By reading. Her definition of pride is based on her reading. Her reading. That means based on what others tell her. She observes this. She summarizes this. Okay. Now this is something. This is an important issue that runs throughout the novel. Your idea of a person, is it based on first-hand experience or second-hand observation of other people's writings and other people's thoughts? Okay, so the idea that you observe something or you reflect upon something based on what you have experienced yourself compared to what you have read about. Do you understand?
Yes.
So our impression of each other, our impression of people around us, is it based on what other people have captured in their work or based on our own first-hand experience of the things that we want to say something about? So this is an important theme, you know? In the sense that, at least for me, this is an important theme. So when I read this part, I had, you see, I've got 6 stars there, so it's like super crazy important for me. And I felt like this is a voice of the writer coming through. It felt to me. I'm not saying I knew for sure, because I never got a chance to meet Jane Austen, unfortunately. I think she would have been bosom buddies with me. I think would have been kindred spirit and all, because she herself hardly got that experience of, you know, being out in the society, being able to do a lot. So she literally was a little bit like Mary. Not that she wasn't pretty or whatever, but she was a little bit like Mary in her sense of the way she reflected upon the world, you know. And it's very much through her studying, her reading, that she formed opinions about society. And to think she produced such wonderful works of art based very much on that. And she's able to produce characters like Lydia and Mrs. Bennet compared to Jane, you know, and Lady Lucas and Miss Lucas and Mr. Bingley and all the rest of it. Okay, so that's something I want to kind of draw your attention to. And her Mary's distinction between vanity and pride. So a person may be proud without being vain. Pride relates more to our opinion of ourselves, vanity to what we would have others think of us. You notice nobody says, "Oh, Mary, shut up. You're just talking nonsense." Nobody said that to her.
No.
Right? Because they do take her seriously. When she played the piano, they were like, you know, "Mary, you know what, it's enough. You know, that's enough." So they didn't take her that seriously when it came to playing the piano. But when it came to her thoughts, she doesn't say it much, right? So then you know the narrator is not omniscient. The narrator is not someone who tells you everything about everyone. The narrator gives you bits and pieces. So it's third person narration, but it's not terribly omniscient because we don't hear more from Mary, for instance.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the bit that I wanted to draw your attention to with this excerpt. Did you see anything else in this excerpt that you want to highlight? You might see something here, you might not. I'm not forcing you to see something in every excerpt. But what I want you to do, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. What I want you to do is, you've got it on the WhatsApp. Choose any one of the excerpt. Okay, spend 5 minutes reading the excerpts. Choose one of the excerpt and tell me something in the excerpt that may help you define the theme of this novel. Can you do that?
This chapter?
No.
Yes, doctor.
I've put it on the WhatsApp. You know, I put
From an excerpt, doctor?
These here, like number 7, number 8, number 9.
The excerpt that you sent us.
The ones that I sent you, that's right.
Yeah.
The ones that I sent you. Okay, so based on the ones that I sent you, you can choose any one. Everyone chooses one. You can duplicate, it can be the same, it doesn't matter. But I want you to choose one from each. Choose any one of these. And based on the one that you have chosen, try to do exactly what I did just now. Talk about the spoken and the unspoken. And based on the unspoken, try to kind of reach towards a theme. You don't have to describe the theme just yet, but, you know, move towards that. Do you understand what I'm asking you to do?
Yes, doctor. Right.
Ranjini, Shahira, and Jen, I didn't hear a word.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. All right. So I'm giving you 5 minutes. Okay, Ken?
Okay.
All right. So I'm gonna the problem with this device is you can't pause. So I'm gonna just stop it here. Okay. I'm gonna stop the recording here, and it will resume in a second recording. Ken?
Okay.
All right.
Sure, doctor.
Okay, doctor.
Okay. So, all right. So I've